out your light bill, your groceries, and you put an X amount in X amount of money, whatever your budget is, and each time you spend what you budget in that envelope budget. So I really relate to that. Any other questions or concerns for Jasmine? Thank you so much, Jasmine. That was really, really helpful.
I'm sorry, Nija.
So now, okay.
Nija, we do have a question.
Yes. Okay.
Someone says, for those with different incomes, what advice would you give to adjust expectations?
The income. Honestly, I would suggest a budget and sticking with the budget. That's really what I was doing until the pandemic hit. I had a budget, and then I also knew that, like, I knew that I didn't make enough money to pay off needed source of income. So whether that was like a second job, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to get a second job. So that would be my advice. Look at your budget, know where your money is going. When you know where your money is going, I mean, you have to give it an assignment, then it's really easy to pay off debt. So yeah, I would say that.
Another question is, other than carrying cash, what other ways can one manage spending?
I will say what I did as soon as I got paid, I knew exactly what my bills were. As soon as I got paid, I just paid my debt. So if I got paid at 9 o'clock, at 9:02, my money was already gone, because what happens is if you hold on to money that's supposed to be assigned somewhere else, you end up spending it. So that was the biggest thing I did. As soon as I got paid, it was already towards the debt. So if someone called me and said, oh, can I borrow 100? I don't have it to give you, it's already gone. And then if you need any money, you already have your emergency fund stacked.
Great, thank you.
Hey, real quick, Jasmine, if you don't mind, can you put your social media information in the chat, just in case anyone wants to follow up on your journey?
Okay, do we have any other questions or concerns? Another good thing with budgeting is too, very simple, is Excel sheet. Excel sheet, what is your income coming in at the top of the month, and what all expenses that you have to pay. So you deduct all your expenses monthly from whatever you have incoming in. Another good resource is Tiffany Aliche. She's very good with budgeting. That's another book, if you guys want to research that. And she talked about budget and an advocate for financial freedom. We have any other questions or concern? If not, we will now have Tanika Wilson to introduce the next panelists, Bria and Adrian Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Let us welcome our next panelists, Bria and Adrian Williams. Bria and Adrian are both 26 years old, and they paid off $96,000 in debt in 18 months. Bria and Adrian met at and graduated from Elon University. Bria graduated with a bachelor's in psychology from Elon and obtained her MBA from North Carolina A&T University. She's a member of the Pi Omicron Omega graduate chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and is a human resources business partner for ABB in Mebane, North Carolina. Adrian also graduated from Elon with a bachelor's degree in strategic communications. He is a member of Delta Lambda Lambda graduate chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And he is an inside sales representative for Lenovo in Morrisville, North Carolina. Let us welcome Bria and Adrian Williams.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. All right. So like it was said, we paid off a little over $96,000 in debt in 18 months. So that consisted of about $40,000 in cars. We have 3, 45 in student loans, and that was all of my student loans. And then we had credit card debt, about $11,500 in credit card debt. So that was about split evenly, I would say, between the two of us. So we kind of want to go through what got us started, why we started, and why at that time, how we got started, and then tips and tricks to pay off debt faster. So what got us started was very similar to what Jasmine said. We read Total Money Makeover. Well, I shouldn't say we. Adrian read Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. And then do you want to talk about that a little bit, and then like your mentorship situation?
Yeah, so as Bria just said, we started off with the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. And I know we've already touched on some Dave Ramsey topics already in the beginning of this conversation, and we're going to do the same throughout our conversation. But I guess the main reason I got started with the Dave Ramsey book was just because of a mentorship that I developed at work. And I had the opportunity to get into a mentorship at Lenovo. And through that mentorship, my mentor just, really helped shape my mind to where we are today. He gave me certain books or certain topics to read and think about. And he really sparked that idea of financial freedom to me. And just going through everything Dave Ramsey talked about, from having the emergency fund up to, having 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. All of those things really derive from just that mentorship that I had at work.
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend looking up the 7 baby steps that Jasmine kind of touched on as well by Dave Ramsey if you want to get started, but we'll keep going since we don't have too much time. So why at that time? So really big for us was thinking about our past and our future. One thing I think as well is that we both grew up completely different. So I grew up in
a whale household. They do pretty good for themselves, put it that way.
Yeah. So, and then Adrian's situation was a little bit different.
Yeah, I grew up in a household where my mom basically took care of everything. I was kind of the quote unquote man of my house for my younger sister and my mom. And I still feel like I hold that stature today, that position today in our family.
Yeah, so like for me, I knew that I wanted to live better than what I grew up, and he wanted to live better than what I grew up too. So it was just really cool to kind of just talk about our past and our future and what legacy we wanted to leave behind for our children. In addition, at that time, I actually wasn't working whenever I was back in school getting my MBA full time. Adrian was working full time. I had just stopped my job to make a career change, but Adrian had saved up like $15,000 to $20,000 in debt. So, like Jasmine said, it says baby step number 1 is to save up $1,000 in your emergency fund. Step 2 is to pay off all of your debt except your house, and then step 3 is to save up 3 to 6 months of expenses. So Adrian completely skipped step 2.
Yeah, I just went straight to saving.
Yeah, and so on May 9th, 2019, we were sitting on the bed, and he had like $10,000 left on his car. And I was just like, why are you saving so much? Like, we have so much debt. Like, why not pay off your car? Because he had the money at that time to pay off the rest of his car. So why not pay off your car? Why save when you have debt? Like, let's just start. And so that's kind of how we started our journey. Quite honestly, like, we didn't really have a set budget. Like, we're not people that like to necessarily follow a certain way, and that really stressed us out. So although budgeting is great, and it's definitely great to know where your money is going, I can say that we did know where our money was going. We did have a set amount that we were going to put towards debt every month, but we did not sit down and have an Excel sheet and all that. We did know how much our bills paid, cost, I should say, yeah. And we did know how much we were putting towards our debt, but that was pretty much as far as I think that we got. So getting into the how, there's 2 methods. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, just off of the point that she was just discussing, even though we didn't necessarily have Excel sheets with everything written out or typed out, I guess right before we started our debt-free journey, what I did was I went through our past, like 2, maybe 3 bank statements. For each of us, I found out what was necessary, what was something that we were spending money on that wasn't a necessity for our household. And I went through and wrote everything out for us, and found out how much we needed for gas, how much we needed for food. And when I say food, I mean groceries. We were cutting back on going out to eat, because I think before we started our journey, we were probably eating out maybe once or twice a week. So we completely cut that out. I really just found out what we needed to live, and anything that was excess money, I mean, we were, like she said, we were just pushing it towards debt.
Yeah. So the two ways was through snowball method and then the avalanche method. Do you want to talk about the snowball method? Which Jasmine kind of touched on, but
Yeah, Jasmine basically went over the snowball method, but with the snowball method, you're really just, starting from your smallest debt and knocking it out, going all the way up to your biggest debt. And I know Jasmine touched on, celebrating. She kind of touched on it, like celebrating those small wins. So with that snowball effect, like Jasmine mentioned, you're knocking out that smallest credit card or that smallest piece of debt that you have, and that's really going to give you that sense of gratitude or that satisfaction that you're going to need. Because like she said, if you're going through and you're going straight for the big dog, you're going straight for that, it's those student loans that are thousands of dollars, and you're really going to get, down on yourself. You're not going to be motivated. So that's something that we really focus on, just getting down and getting that small debt paid for.
yeah. And then the other method is the avalanche method. So the avalanche method is starting with your debt that has the highest interest rate. So that's how we did my student loan debt. So we paid off, I think there was the most was 8%. So we started with the one that was 8% interest, because if we knock that out, then that's less money that we're accruing over the time. So we started with that, and then what really helped us is definitely
we got blessed with the
with
the
them
interest
freezing
rates.
the interest rate. So like Jasmine, we hustled and we paid it off as quick as we could whenever that happened. So just to wrap it up really quick, with some tips and tricks to pay off your debt faster. So one, Adrian already touched on, was groceries. So I knew where to shop. I knew where to get my meat from. I knew where to get regular household goods from, and then made a list of meals throughout the week. So I knew exactly what was in the pantry, what could I make meals out of the pantry with, and I made a grocery list based off of the meals for the week. We also stopped using paper products. We used the dishes that we had in the sink and washed them. Not the sink, but the cabinets, and washed them. And then we always thought ahead. So make sure that you live within your means. While I was in graduate school, I made sure that I got a job that helped pay for my tuition. So I got a job on campus, and it paid for my tuition, which saved us $15,000 right there. So making sure that you're thinking ahead is really, really important. Even though we didn't formally budget, it's definitely important to know where your money is going. And then cancel your subscription. So that $10 a month can go right back in your pocket and go towards your debt. That's super important. And then the last thing is the latte factor. So think about the small amount of money you use daily. Like if you go get coffee every day, that adds up. So that money can also go back in your pocket. I had to buy a coffee maker and learn how to make coffee, and I'm still doing it now. So, the latte factor is really big. Think about what you're doing every day. Now I'm noticing that I get snacks every day at work. Now I need to reel that back in. So those are our few tips and tricks to pay off debt faster. And that is our journey. Are there any questions?
One thing, I guess, before anybody does ask any question, I would say one of the most important pieces I would say to, I guess, throughout our journey was we started off tithing. As soon as we went into our debt-free journey, this is when we really got into the aspect, or I guess just that whole idea of tithing. At first I was kind of on the water about it. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, because tithing, I mean, sometimes you might feel like you need that extra few $100s that's coming in. So it's just something that really makes you think. But now it's just it's second nature. Whenever I get those commission checks coming in, because I'm in sales, or just those checks in general, you get those in, and it's just okay, I know what I'm doing with this part of my check that's coming in. And I mean, since we've started tithing, we've never lacked. I mean, we have been extremely blessed, and I mean, it's only up from here. Oh yes, and another book that we did read along our journey, we actually, after we posted our debt-free journey on Facebook, someone reached out to us and sent us this book. It's called How Money Works. And it is a really simple, easy read for anyone, regardless of how well versed you are with your money. It gives you different ways your money can work for you, different investment options, just different places you can put your money and allow it to grow, other than it just sitting in somewhere like a savings account. It gives you those different options and just makes you think a little bit more about your money.
All right. Thank you.
That was,
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so we did have one question. The chat has been, there's a bunch of amens now. Let me see if I can scroll up. Okay, yes, there's a question from Leela, and her question is, now that you are debt-free, what do you do to prevent reverting back?
I would say staying up with those, I guess, quote unquote spreadsheet, and really, trying not to get into those bad habits, just being mindful of the things that we're doing now, even though we're debt free, like I said, we were cutting back on eating out before, and now it's like we're trying to make sure we don't get ourselves back into those bad habits. I think just last week, me and Bria were like, man, we're so tired, we don't want to cook. And we started thinking, we're like, man, we're starting to spend money on eating again. So it's like, no, we need to reel it back in and get back on track. So, it's really just being mindful and just not letting old habits come back into play.
Yeah, and we started a joint account. So someone said accountability partner. So now that we have a joint account, we can see where money's going and hold each other accountable, which is really important. And I'm a very frugal person, so I'm not spending money anyway.
We have another question. Do you recommend consolidating credit card debt to avoid the high interest rates and just have one payment?
I think that really just depends on your situation. So for us, we didn't worry about that. We only had like 3 credit cards in total between the 2 of us. So it was really just paying off those credit cards one at a time, and we didn't have a high interest rate anyway. So it really just depends on your situation.
Have any more questions or concerns? That was really good. Definitely,
Yeah, that was really good.
take on the tips with the latte factor. I definitely have some paper plates, and when I run out of those, I'm going to go ahead and use my regular dishes because those $3 and $4 they add up.
They add up. They do.
Yeah, within a month, you didn't spend $20 or $30 on paper products.
Absolutely.
So that was definitely. I took some notes and will be adding them accordingly to my life. Any other questions or concerns? Go ahead.
It looks like we have a question. So I guess this is for Jasmine and Bria and Andre. So the question is, have you invested in any stock market?
Yeah, so I can speak for us personally. I'm not going to say I'm well versed in the stock market, but I guess throughout our journey is when I actually had to cut back on my investments. I have a 401k, I have a Roth IRA, and I have a Robinhood account. So, I'm trading in all of these different accounts. And whenever we got on our journey, I was like, look, I need more money to put towards this debt. So I had to cut back on everything. And I had conversations with my friends, financial advisors, asking them, do they think it was a smart idea to cut back? Because even Dave Ramsey says you should cut back on your contributions. And that's exactly what I did. And it helped us. A lot of people thought it was dumb, but my money is still growing.
Bria, Adrian, would you say it would be safe to pay off all debt before start to investing?
I would.
Yeah, I personally would. What are you can like grow certain things, but just be smart about your money in general, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, you have to remember that the stock market is not guaranteed money. So any money that you put into the stock market, you have the potential of losing. So I always say, if you can't afford to lose that money, don't invest.
Absolutely.
I agree. That was really, really good information. Anything else?
We'll drop our YouTube channel in the chat and then our Instagram as well, I guess. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bria and Adrian. That was really, really informative. So now we will have Michelle to introduce the next panelist, Brittany and Newton Dennis.
Good evening, everyone. Our last panelists are Brittany and Newton Dennis. Brittany and Newton currently reside in Greensboro, North Carolina. Brittany is a wife, a mom, and a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Over the last 8 years after graduating with her bachelor's degree from North Carolina A&T, Brittany had the honor to work in many different realms of the education system. She currently holds a position as an education curriculum facilitator, and she recently graduated with a master's degree in education in spring of 2020. In addition to being a public school advocate, Brittany is a strong believer that ambition without anointing is like faith without works. It is dead. Newton Dennis is also a 2-degree graduate of North Carolina A&T, receiving his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and his master's degree in industrial engineering. While in school, Newton met his now best friend and now business partner, Hercules Conway. Together, they have successfully created a safe and exciting environment for collegiate audiences and alumni to party and travel abroad together. Next Level Entertainment was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, and now has left its mark in countries all around the world. Newton is currently a serial entrepreneur and chief operating officer of the company. When this journey first began, Brittany and Newton had a total of $150,000 worth of debt. The vast majority of it was $115,000, which was debt accumulated through student loans, which was also the one that meant the most to them in paying off. It took them 5 years to pay off their debt, and they are ready to share the how with us. Everyone, let us welcome Brittany and Newton Dennis.
Good afternoon, everyone. And good afternoon. I want to first start off by extending a sisterly thank you to the members of Rho Omega chapter, and also send a welcome to all the participants. I know it is a Monday, so I am thankful. I also want to acknowledge and praise the speakers before me because their journeys are just inspirational. I know we're all like-minded people here, but it's nice to be around people that are aspiring to be great and are on their way to financial freedom. So hello to everyone. I do want to acknowledge my husband who had all intent to be here. And unfortunately, I spoke to a group earlier, my 5-year-old is being very 5 tonight. So he is being a dad right now with my 5-year-old. So I will be speaking for the two of us, but I will try to do my best and pick up the slack where he would have jumped in. I am not going to hold us because I know that it is Monday and it's getting late. Before I jump into my journey, I want to outline 5 important factors that contributed and maintained to the success of the path that we took. Much like Jasmine, I'm gonna set a timer because I can assure you as an educator, and I was a chatty Cathy, I can talk all night. So I'm gonna put myself on a 10-minute timer so I can just cut myself off. The 5 key details, and if you're a note taker, this is your time to shine. The 5 factors I want to start off with are: number 1, determine your why and analyze your attitude toward debt. Number 2, educate yourself. Number 3, create a budget with non-negotiables and stick to it. Number 4, celebrate the little wins. And number 5, negotiate your loans and research grant and job opportunities that contribute to student debt. Now, what I plan to do is I'm going to share with you guys my journey. When those 5 key factors pop up along the way, I'm going to highlight how they relate to us, but then also share tips and elaborate on what they could mean to you. So I'm going to start with my husband and I, why, and our attitudes toward student debt. So both my husband and I had always dreamed of being debt-free. However, when our son Britton was born in May 2015, we decided to put actionable steps toward that dream. And he was basically the catalyst of it all. We knew that it was important. We knew the opportunities that it could open, but seeing Britton and knowing that we wanted to at least provide a life where he could start or grow up in financial freedom was important to us. It was also something that had never happened in our family. So we wanted to be the first generation to say we are debt free and to start a life where he could obtain or at least see that financial freedom is something that you can really experience. That why meant a lot to us. And it was important for him and I to say it out loud so that we knew that's going to be our driving force. I think your why is important to establish early on because without it, it's going to be hard to stay consistent and get through. The next thing that was important after establishing our why was analyzing and really reflecting on our attitude toward debt. My husband and I had a little different relationship and attitude toward debt. And what I mean by that is he was very, what I call, wholesome with money. He always paid his student monthly payment. He paid the minimum balance initially on time. My journey was a little different. I was fast with my cash, meaning like if I had a quarter, an hour later, I only had a dime. And I also was ignorant to my debt. So I very much had a mindset and attitude of like, you're always going to have bills, like they're not going anywhere. So debt is just something I'm probably just going to die with. However, like I mentioned, once my son was born, I really realized, student debt freedom is something we wanted, and why not go for it? Why not use our son as our driving force? So with that, I am charging you guys and encouraging you, if you do nothing else tonight, establish your why and reflect on your attitude toward debt, because once you have those two factors, you can at least begin the journey. Number 2 was educate yourself. So the first thing that I had to do was find out anything about my loans, because I knew I had them and I was very naive, and I had this assumption of like, they all are named Sally Mae, she exists, she may call, I ignore her. That was the gist of what I knew about student loans. So I had to educate myself and say, actually, there's debt that doesn't have the name Sally Mae. I had to call my student loan officers and the companies and find out exactly when I'm paying, what is my payment actually going to? And just like the previous kind of mentioned, my debt initially, unfortunately, my loan was bought out by another company. And when that company bought out my initial loan company, their interest rate was much higher than what I originally signed for. And again, because I didn't educate myself, my ignorance allowed my debt to just accumulate and curate. And by the time I graduated, it was something that I never imagined numbers that I would see. So I'm, again, charging you to educate yourself. Go find out what exactly the name of your student debt loan company is. I want you to go ask them questions like, what is the minimum payment? How much money is going actually toward my debt and how much is actually going toward interest? How many payments am I away from actually being debt free? Because these are questions that we're not asking. And as a result, we're ending paying for a lifetime. So definitely educate yourself. The third is create a budget with non-negotiables. Now, I for sure envy the timelines of the former speakers. However, my income and the lifestyle that my husband and I were living did not allow us to have a short timeline. So it took 5 years to pay off this debt. And we paid off $115,000 in 5 years, but was because of the budget and the non-negotiables we created. And what I mean by that is we looked at our bills and what we called our non-negotiable bills. These were things that like keep you from being on the street, your mortgage, your car note, your cell phone. And then we looked at bills that we consider our vice. And, everybody has their vice. And we decided we want to be debt free, but we were like, we still want to live. And so we looked at things that we knew were not non-negotiables, but were our vice and we couldn't live without. For my husband, it was travel and tech. And as a Black girl that's natural, for me, it was my hair. So I decided I'm getting my hair done every week. I don't care if we're in debt forever. And his was travel and technology. But we looked a little bit deeper into our finances and realized there were some things that we could go without. And I think the former panelists mentioned this a little bit. So some of the things that we looked at was, instead of our cable bill, we streamed TV because it was cheaper. Instead of getting a massage every month for Massage MB, I let my husband run my back. Instead of going to a gym membership, my husband ran around the block. So there were just different things that we looked at that we knew we could live without. And that paper plate thing is a real thing. My mom taught me that in high school. Paper plates are killing y'all. Y'all just don't know it yet. So shout out to the former panelists, because that is a real thing. But we looked at our non-negotiables and we looked at our vices, and we took every additional amount of money that we were spending on our non-negotiable bills and we put it toward our student debt. The big key thing is do not pay the minimum balance. Like, I'm a firm believer, you can't get out of debt paying the minimum balance. And if you do, it's going to be a 90-year timeline. So we took every extra bill and put it toward our student debt. We also looked at any bonuses or any extra money that came in that was unexpected. We put it toward student debt. So that was like how our non-negotiables in our budget helped us get, well, I'm not going to say faster, but that's how we maintain that 5-year timeline, is making sure any extra money went toward that. The fourth thing is celebrating the little wins, right? So 5 years is a long time. At one point, I remember thinking like, we're never going to make it. We never should have started it. But my husband is extremely anal. He is the opposite of me. He is watching every single dime down to the penny. So when I go to the dollar store, he's like, it was 207. What were the 2 things you bought? And he had an Excel spreadsheet, and every little dime we spent or any amount of money we paid off, he sent it. So it was almost like our student debt was replaced with the good morning text. It was like, hey, we're down to 96K. We're down to 55K. And initially it felt like I was going to be in debt forever. I remember the first time we did an update and we went from 115 to 105. And I was like, $100,000 is still a lot of money. But we continue to celebrate those little wins. And we didn't celebrate it by spending more money. We celebrated it by thinking and imagining of what we were going to be able to do once we were out of debt. So I got a vision board and I started putting a house that I knew we wanted to build. I started putting more. We also do a lot with stocks. So we started thinking of the money that we could invest in stocks. So we started imagining what we could do if just in fact we were able to eliminate this debt. And that really helped to celebrate the little wins, but also put something tangible in front of it to keep us moving forward. The last thing that I want to speak to is the negotiating your debt. So student debt is one type of debt, but there's also credit cards and things like that. So a cool thing that a lawyer recently taught me is that you can negotiate credit card debt. And I heard someone earlier mention consolidating. Before you consider consolidating, consider calling and negotiating your debt, because a lot of times if it's credit card debt, not so much student, because student is very black and white. We know how you created it. You went to school, you took a class, it's clean there. But with credit card debt, you can negotiate and determine how it hits your credit. You can also dispute things. You can't say it's fraud if you really spent it, but you can definitely negotiate the payments, the plan, and the interest rate if it's something like credit cards. So I also want to speak to just a little bit. I recently did an interview around student debt, and I just want to read just a portion of the parts that I feel like really helped us. And it is aligned with the factor 3 to create a budget with non-negotiables. It took us about 5 years to eliminate all our consumer debt. Could we have paid it off sooner? Absolutely. But we each had a non-negotiable that we felt was important to make this journey work for us. Newton was an avid traveler. I love to get my hair done, as I mentioned. So we made sure to put that a part of our budget. If you're a person that feels like you can't do this alone, key things that I encourage is put yourself around like-minded people. So remember, I spoke to that mindset and that attitude. If you're around people that were very similar to me at the beginning of like, I'm always going to have debt, it's never going to go anywhere. You're always going to have debt and it's never going to go anywhere. But if you put yourself around people that are like, student financial freedom is something that I want to achieve, and student debt is not something that I want to be in forever, then you have a better chance of reaching that goal. So I do encourage you, if you have not started, to consider these 5 things. Determine your why, reflect and analyze your attitude toward debt, educate yourself, create a budget with non-negotiables and stick to it, celebrate the little wins, and negotiate and research grant opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Brittany, I heard that you said it took you 5 years and you said that that was a long time. The fact that it wasn't a long time is not really relevant. The fact is that you completed it. So if it had taken you 5 or 10 or 20 years, the fact is that you got it completed. So always give yourself credit for that. It's not sometimes you have to put a time limit on something. If you achieved the goal, you achieved it. So if it was 5 months to 5 years, we appreciate you achieving it and sharing how you did that with us. We have any other questions or concern? And I do want to, oh, go ahead, someone speaking.
Yep. So we have one question for any of the awesome panelists. Oops. let me go back up. How long did it take for your credit score to bounce back after paying off debt / closing accounts? Do you have any advice for boosting it back up without opening additional accounts? So this is for any of the panelists.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So for me, and just to be completely transparent, my credit score was extremely damaged. I'm not even going to say low. I'm just going to say it was damaged. So it was extremely damaged about 7 years ago. My husband and I were trying to buy a house, which the course was rough. And it was some credit card debt that I accumulated in college. And then of course, student debt that, like I said, was being deferred and had a lot of interest. And so one of the very first things that helped is I was blessed with an amazing village. My aunt and my mother went on and attacked my credit card debt because it was very small, and they paid it off for me. But in order to increase my credit score, what my husband and I did is we had one credit card, and it was actually his business credit card, and we put both of them in our name. And so what we did was every single bill we paid it on our card and used our actual cash to like pay off the debt. So we didn't actually use our credit card to like live or anything like that. We just took it as like something to build credit, and it helped us build credit very quickly because we knew like clearly you're going to pay your non-negotiable bills. So like our car note, anything that was big, we put on a credit card, and then we immediately just took our money to pay the credit card. And that helped because his credit was already amazing, but it helped bring my credit score up. And then once we brought my credit score up, we threw the credit card away because I don't have no discipline, y'all. and we didn't want to backslide, but it helped because then our mortgage, like my house and the fact that we were paying off our student loans, then continued to boost it up. But we definitely had to use that as cash for our non-negotiable bills to build my score up.
Awesome. So then next question we have, when you negotiate your credit card debt, will the accounts stay open or do they close?
It stays open. So what you would do, and I recommend, like for me, like I said, my friend is a lawyer and she spoke to more of this. So if you send me like a DM, I can give you her information because I don't want to share too much information and it's not accurate information. That's remain open. However, like I said, you can call and negotiate the way it hits your credit. You can negotiate the interest, and then you can definitely change. Like for example, if it was something like, oh, I spent $115 at JCPenney's, but your interest rate is, I don't know, like 2%, something crazy. You can call and negotiate your interest rate on how it's hitting your actual credit. And you can also negotiate your payment so that it doesn't like you're missing a payment. And that's just things that they don't want you to know, but you are allowed and they have to abide by when you negotiate credit card debt. So it just looks a little bit different than, like I said, student loans or your mortgage, which your mortgage, it would be a little bit different, like unless you were like refinancing a loan or something like that. But you just have more leeway when it's a credit card versus one flat bill of like student debt or mortgage or things like that.
And I would recommend not closing your credit cards.
Yeah.
That's not smart. I'm looking in the chat. I see someone just said it. I mean, as you have that credit history, the better your credit score is. So, I mean, if you have like student loans, that account's going to close. So yes, you're going to take a hit, but definitely do not close your credit cards.
Yeah, and just because you have a credit card doesn't mean you have to use that credit card. Like I have one credit card from high school. I think I've probably used it twice since high school, and it's just on my account just so I can show that longevity and that I've kept up with my payments over time. So I mean, it'll add on to that what's the word I'm looking for, I guess the total amount of credit that you have, and that keeps you under that minimum. I think it's what, 30% that people recommend you stay under. 20% that people recommend you stay under. So all of that credit history or those credit lines are going to help you, but you don't have to use all of them.
Yeah, but we actually do still use credit cards. Kind of like Brittany, like we have certain non-negotiables that we put on there and then we pay them off every month. But we're disciplined with it, so we talk about what we're going to use and put on there. So
if you do get a credit card, find you a good credit card that gives you some good benefits, because we actually just got a Chase I think it's Chase Flex
Yeah,
Freedom.
yeah.
Is what it is. So obviously you have to be responsible, like Bria just said. But we do get a lot of cash back with like certain purchases, and it's, I mean, it could be from anything. So just knowing what type of card that you get if you do happen to get another card.
I was gonna say when it comes to credit card accounts, totally agree. Don't close them. I struggle when it comes to still using my credit cards because I feel like I have the cash. Why am I borrowing money so I can get a credit card? I mean, a good credit score, so I can prove to people that I'm responsible enough when I have the cash, right? So every now and then I might put something like really petty on it. Like I might like, oh, my dog needs to get washed, and I'll put that on it, and then I'll like pay it off like 2 weeks later. Or it's really helpful to try to make like 2 payments in 1 month, so like every 2 weeks. So even if you're paying like $15 and it's 30, that really boosts your credit score. And then I would say, even though, like he said, you have to, you know, you can keep your credit scores, doesn't mean they have to travel with you. They don't have to go to the store with you because it's really easy to pull them out. I almost froze my credit card, like put it in water and froze it because I needed to put it somewhere like where I couldn't get it. So I put it like in a box, in a sock, on top of my closet. So if I, you know, by the time you're getting to it, you're like, is this an emergency? No, you know, give yourself some delay.
All right, so I'm trying to keep up with the questions here. So the next question was, how has using cash during the pandemic and coin shortage been? Did you all have to use an alternative method? This is for the cash grocery bill method.
Yes. And so, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, especially here in Los Angeles, like COVID is really, we're on super lockdown. So people are not taking cash or coins of any sort anymore. So what I had to do is at one point I had all of my money coming out of like the same card. So now I got a different card where I have like my bill. So I just send my bill money over there. And then I have a card with just like my savings on it. And then, so the card I have now is just money for me to spend. Like, so, you know, that account could have like whatever money that I'm allowed to spend that I know like this money is not assigned to anything. This is where I can go to the store, I can buy food. I keep that on me. So it's kind of like cash, but it's just on a card.
Very
Okay,
good point. You have any more?
Yeah, I was just scrolling down to catch up. Okay, that's all that I see here. Did anyone else have any questions?
I am a note taker, so I just want to share some things that I took some on first. To increase your finances, first off, after paying all of your debt, some ways to increase your finances is 401k, Roth IRA, real estate and stocks. Those are some of the main things to increase your finances. Of course, you want to think of those things after all of your debt have been paid. Going back to Brittany with the business credit versus regular credit, those are two different credit scores. I had an incident where I had a client who got a business credit card and to increase their score. However, when it was time for them to purchase a home, that business credit card did not count when it was ready to buy a home. Those are two different credit scores. So you can raise a business credit score if you have a business, and to raise your personal credit scores, that's where if you're disciplined, getting a credit card and paying it off on time and spending every month, it should have a zero balance. Maybe you want to spend it, like they say, with gas, food, something small, to show that you are able to handle credit and be disciplined with that. So you want to be reminded that business credit score and your personal credit score are two different scores, okay? And then I had another client back with that remind me of Brittany and her husband, where the husband was very, very disciplined with his credit card. However, the wife, she loved to spend. And so she wanted to increase her credit score as well. because her husband's credit score was already had a high credit score. So what they did was her husband put the wife on the credit card as a second owner. Therefore, when the credit card was paid, both of their credit scores was affected to increase. So that's another thing. I don't recommend credit cards, but however, they are good for increasing your scores if you are disciplined. That is a key fact. You have to be disciplined when dealing with credit cards. So I definitely agree with all the panelists here, and that was some really good information. Do we have anything else before we go into closing? Well, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you. We will now have our president of the Rho Omega chapter, Dana Hardison, to give acknowledgements and closing.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot. The biggest takeaway for me was change your mindset. Thinking about how we view money is huge, totally huge. And also thinking about your why. That sort of gave me pause as well. One of the things we're doing in Rho Omega as part of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority is working with building your economic legacy. That is our Target 3 program. So join us for future events where we talk about debt, we talk about building your credit score, we talk about savings, we will focus on African-American businesses. We want to give you information so that you can make better financial decisions for yourself and for your future. Again, my name is Dina Hardison. I am the president of Rho Omega chapter. We thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank Adonica Stewart. She is the lead in Target 3, her and Latice Majet. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you, Nija Newstar, for serving as our MC. And I want to thank our other chapter members for participating and providing introductions to the panelists. And I also want to thank our panelists. Thank you for providing such important information in a way that everyone can understand. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Good night. Okay, so Auroras, it's just us.